something called a body scan, and I'm going to invite you guys to do that with me today. So first things first, I want everybody to kind of readjust themselves in their chair. I want your back to be long and straight and tall. I want you to sit your shoulders just below your ears and not so high up on your ears, just below your ears. Sit comfortable. Have your spine pressed into the back of the chair. I want you to take a deep breath in and push out. Now, a body scan is focusing all on energy. So we're going to check in with ourselves. We're going to check in with our body. We're going to see how we feel. I want you to focus in on your toes, not necessarily wiggling your toes or making any movements with your toes. Just focus on your toes, checking with yourself, checking with the balls of your feet, your heel, checking with your ankles. Take that energy, move it through your calves, your knees. Take a deep breath and have that energy flow through your thighs and your waist. Now that energy should be in your diaphragm. I would like you to take your right hand, place it on your stomach, your left hand, place it on your chest. We're going to take a deep inhale. We're going to hold it for 4 seconds. Then we're going to exhale for 4 seconds. This is called box breathing, something we'll talk about later on today. I want you to inhale, hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, and push out, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more time, inhale, hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, and push out, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now take that energy, check in with your heart. How are you feeling today? Are you feeling refreshed? Are you well? Are you tired? Are you fatigued? It's the last session. Take that energy. Now check in with your shoulders. Are your shoulders pinned up against your ears? If they are, just let them loose down your back. Check in with, let's start with our right shoulder, our right biceps, triceps. Close your eyes if your eyes aren't closed now. And move down to your forearms, move down to your fingers. And now take that ball of energy, jump it across to your left fingertips, your left thumb, the palms of your hand, your wrist, forearm, elbow, biceps, triceps. Now, most importantly, let's move into our brain. Take a deep inhale in and exhale out. Now we're going to move into our brain. Now, automatically, you start thinking of everything on your to-do list, all the assignments you have to get done. If you're a school psychologist like myself, all the evaluations. If you're a teacher, lesson planning. If you're a school leader, the millions and millions amounts of emails that you have to respond to after this. You may be thinking about what to eat for dinner. You may be thinking about your spouse, your kids. Just recognize all of that and kind of put it in a corner right now. We're not going to negate it. However, we're going to focus on ourselves right now. Take a deep inhale and exhale out. Now, one thing I do with my kids, I have them understand the value of 1 minute. I think 1 minute is an incredibly long period of time that we underutilize. So I'm going to stop talking for approximately 1 minute. And I want you guys to continue breathing deeply. If you have any fluttering thoughts in your mind, just put them in a corner and you'll talk to them later. So your minute begins now. Okay, I invite you now to open your eyes, and I want you to shrug your shoulders up and down. You can wiggle your arms a little bit, wiggle your feet, wiggle your toes, wake up the senses, move your leg left, right, up, down, and you are done. That was a body scan. I do that with my kids almost every day, depending on what school I'm at, whether that is right before lunch, after recess, especially now during virtual learning, there's no real transition time between reading and math. So this is a good structured break for the kids to do every day. That is your first tip of the day. We're going to have a lot of tips of the day. So let's get started. My name is Callistus Obeng. I am a school psychologist at Imagine Schools. I've been a school psychologist since my 6th year. And today we are going to talk about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is something that we talk about a lot in schools. And these are just a couple of tricks and tips that I have found useful for myself along the way. And again, M.A.R.S is something that I created out of the need. And I hope you guys will invite M.A.R.S into your school building in about 1 hour. Okay, so this is like a 2-part training. The first part, we're going to talk about these little bundles of joy that you decided to dedicate your life to, the students that you teach every single day. We're going to talk about anti-anxiety, breathing, and movement techniques. What we just did with the body scan is anti-anxiety, that's breathing. I want you guys to do that in your classrooms, in your school, as much as possible. We're also going to talk about self-regulation, this M.A.R.S thing that I created. And we're going to talk about normalizing restorative circles. What actually is a restorative circle? I think there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to restorative circles. So we're going to debunk some myths today. And then we're going to do that for about 20 minutes. So for about 20 minutes, it's going to be all about the kids. And then after that, I want to focus just about you because I need to make sure that you guys are at 100% every day so you can pour in that love, pour in that joy into your students. So we need to talk about burnout. We need to talk about vicarious trauma and self-care. What exactly is self-care? Self-care is a word that we have saturated, especially in 2020. And we need to talk about what is real self-care and how you can incorporate it into your life every single day. So let's take this journey. First things first. One thing schools are very good at is, especially charter schools, are insanely proactive, right? We plan a lot. We have lesson plans, we have flow charts, we have data mapping. I didn't know what data mapping was until I got into the schools. There is a plan for everything. I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, especially this year, I have had a pre-meeting just to have a meeting, and then I have a post-meeting to talk about how the pre-meeting could be a little bit better. There's always some type of meeting, always some type of plan. However, 99% of those meetings and those plans and all the preventative measures that we're taking has to do with curriculum and instruction. Emotions don't necessarily get spoken about until it's reached to a point of, oh, I think I need this child to be evaluated, or like some horrific incident happened, and then we talk about a child's emotions, or there's a lot of fighting in the school, and then we talk about emotions. But can we prevent some of those emotions before they get to like a place of altitude, I'll call it? A lot of schools, a lot of teachers typically do a temperature check, what I have here at the bottom. Temperature check, I'm pretty sure everybody on this call has done one before. You go into the classroom, you ask your kids on a scale from 1 to 10, how are you feeling? 10 being great, 1 being bad, how are you feeling? A lot of teachers ask that first thing as soon as the school day starts. I have some kids who say, hey, I'm feeling a 2, I'm feeling a 3 right now, I'm not feeling that great. And then I've noticed like what happens after the 2 or the 3. It's like, okay, then the teacher says, all right, I hope things will be better. Let's start the class. That hasn't helped the child at all at that point. It's just saying, hey, I see that you're feeling bad, but it's virtual. There's nothing I can really do about it. Let's start. Or you guys may have a behavior tech. You guys may have a dedicated aide. At most, if you're lucky, you'll have a school psychologist and a school counselor and a school social worker in the same school. But very rarely will you have all 3. And even if you have all 3, there's only but so many places these clinicians can go. And like myself, I'm a school psychologist. At one, I work at a couple of different schools. At one of my schools, there is one additional school social worker. At another school, I have a school counselor and a school social worker. Both of my schools over 200, 300 kids, so we get spread thin. So I had to create something that teachers can implement in a classroom that can help the child out before I get there, because I can't be everywhere. And I know any clinicians on the call have this the same worry. So here I have something called the mentally adaptive response system, otherwise known as M.A.R.S. And M.A.R.S is an actual person, a virtual person. And here is my M.A.R.S right here. And I'm going to show you guys in the next 20 minutes how to create M.A.R.S for your kids in your classroom. My personal M.A.R.S, well, this is from an 8th grader who has ED, emotionally has an emotional disability, and I use the same M.A.R.S for a 4th grader who's just a gen ed 4th grader. He doesn't have an IEP or a disability or anything like that, and it works perfectly for both of them. This M.A.R.S says grounding, grounding senses, grounding physical. This M.A.R.S has an affirmation, and at the end, it has airplane steps. All those sound really weird, and hopefully I will talk them through with this next one. Okay, first things first is how to actually create your avatar. This is how you bring kids in. This is how you bring your students in, because all the students love creating their avatar. I have done this from pre-K 3 up until 12th grade. It's a little different for each grade, but at the end of the day, all the kids love it. So first things first, we're gonna talk about, it's easier to go from the top and then start to the, and then go to the bottom. So for your 8th graders to 12th graders, even want to say like 6th grade to 12th grade, there's a good chance that your students already have something called a Bitmoji. A Bitmoji can be downloaded. If you have an Android phone, it can be downloaded through the Google Play Store. If you have an iPhone, it can be downloaded through the App Store, or even better, just on your computer. If you have a Chrome browser, you can download it on Google, and it's just called the Bitmoji extension, and will download on Google. What a Bitmoji is, if you look at the left-hand bottom corner with all the Black women with different hairstyles, and if you look on the other side, on the right lower corner, there is a Hispanic girl with a flower crown. Those are Bitmojis. You can customize the Bitmoji to make it look like however you want it to look like. 9 times out of 10, you want to create a Bitmoji that looks like you. When I'm instructing my kids on how to create their own M.A.R.S, I say, hey, create you on your best day. If you were feeling bad, who would you want to talk to? You want to talk to yourself, because you are your best friend. You give yourself the best advice. So create you on your best day. There is another one. There's another platform that you can use to create your M.A.R.S, something called Journey to Wellness. If you are familiar with Journey to Wellness, it is a very, very popular Instagram account. It is an open Instagram account. A lot of teachers already use the Journey to Wellness avatar. It is on the top right-hand side with the girl with the rainbow overhead, and it says self-love, acceptance, and there's a bunch of affirmations down there. I have teachers who cut out, well, crop now. I have teachers who crop out that picture, and they say, hey, children, you know, who wants to use this avatar? You have some people who are picking the avatar. And last but not least, for the little kids, I'm talking pre-K 3 to probably 2nd grade. This middle picture right here in the very dead center in the middle is from a kindergarten student who I helped her create her M.A.R.S. And this, I said, hey, draw you on your best day, your favorite moment. And this is what she went with, and she loves it. This is her M.A.R.S, and it works for her. So this is something that definitely can be used from pre-K 3 all the way up to 12th grade. You know, this is the buy-in for the kids. Once they realize that, oh, like I get to take a class period and I can just customize my avatar and customize my virtual therapist, as we'll call it, they're very, very excited about that. And 9 times out of 10, kids already have a Bitmoji because everybody uses it. Okay, so after you create your Bitmoji, most important thing, you got to add your toolkit. So the first thing you can do is divide your paper in half. But because we are virtual, I would tell the child to open up a Word document and put a horizontal line going halfway down, kind of like I have this black horizontal line going halfway down my screen. You want to label one side cold. You want to label the next side hot. So when you are cold, you have to think, when I am cold, I am sad, I am fatigued. What do you want to happen? You want somebody to warm you up. So these are all tips and tricks that, warm you up. All right, first things first is affirmations. I think affirmations are the most amazing thing in the world. I know a lot of adults use affirmations. I strongly, strongly believe that every student needs an affirmation. I have kids. I know some of you guys have kids out there. Before the test even starts, they've already said, I failed. I'm going to fail. I can't do this. Or I have a bunch of kids on behavior plans. And let's say they get into a little trouble first thing in the morning, they automatically say, hey, I'm not going to get my prize for the day. I can't do this. I've had a bad day. I want to go home. So with those kids, I want to say every school I've ever been in has at least 10 to 15 of those type of students. I gave them all an affirmation. I talked to the parents. I said, hey, go to the dollar store. You're going to see a little mirror, a little pocket mirror that you can buy. Put it next to your workstation. We're all virtual right now. So I know some kids have a little desk. Some kids have a couch, a carpet, whatever it is. And every time they say, I can't do something, have them look in the mirror and repeat the affirmation 2 or 3 times. So in the reference to Mars, let's say you guys do your temperature check and you have a student who's just really out of it. And most of your teachers know your kids, so you can tell who is really out of it. I have the teacher say, hey, don't make it a big deal as far as like calling the child out. Just say, hey, Jonathan, okay, I see you're out of 3. Go ahead, do your Mars affirmation a couple of times and then come back to the virtual classroom. They do it, it takes 30 seconds, and then they're like, okay, I feel a little bit better. We're not negating Jonathan's emotions. We're still going to refer Jonathan to the psychologist or to the counselor, whoever it may be. However, if you don't respond to that child's emotion right then and there, you've almost lost the whole class period. And especially virtually, they're either going to be off, they're going to be changing their background left and right, they're going to be punching the screen, things like that. So this is just to get the child back. Now, next thing, airplane steps. I love airplane steps. Again, created this out of just pure spontaneity. Pre-K, I want to say pre-K 3 to about 3rd grade. I have a lot of teachers who will say, especially during virtual learning, go take a drink of water and then come back, go take a little break and come back. They notice that a kid is sad, a kid needs just a little bit more energy. So what I did for a couple of my teachers, I said, hey, we live in Washington, D.C. How about you have them go take a trip to a different city around the world, and you just call it airplane steps. So I have one of my kids, he's feeling a little bit out of it. Let's say they're doing a little bit of independent work, a little bit of reading. He's not paying attention anyway, but we don't want to lose that whole class period. Teacher will say really quickly, hey, Jonathan, take airplane steps, go to New York and come back. He knows that he gets up, he takes 25 steps, and then he walks back and he's good to go. Or if it's a child who needs a little bit longer of a break, go to London and come back. I have teachers, they create their own cities, they introduce it, they almost adopt Mars into their already PBIS plan. Most schools have a PBIS plan. So they use Mars and they adopt it into the PBIS and they're good to go. Next thing is draw me. I have so many teachers who say, draw me a picture. And on more than a few occasions, the child who was asked to draw a picture left the classroom for quite a long period of time. If you tell a child to draw a picture, they could be gone for a while. So what I do, and I have no issue with saying, draw a picture, especially if the child just needs more of a structured break. But I would say like draw you on the beach with your best friend, draw you in your Halloween costume, draw you helping out a friend, and make it some way that your student can send that picture to the teacher, and teacher, you have to respond back. You are creating that bond, you are creating that emotional pact with your child. You can't just say, hey, draw a picture, then all right, you can come back to class. Like it's all in the response. Once the child sees that, oh my gosh, Miss Taylor, responded back to my picture, it's building that layer of empathy, building that layer of support. Last thing, so this came when a throwback music video came when I went into a classroom. I had a child who was he was doing this thing. He was like weighing back and forth. He really wasn't doing work for the day. He really didn't want to talk. And then he's 13, and I said, hey, let's try airplane steps. Again, 13-year-old airplane steps probably wouldn't work. So what I did was I said, hey, pick a year from 1970 to 2004. And he picked 1985, right? So I showed him an old music video of Whitney Houston. He loved it. He was joking about it. He said, the hair, the costume, the music is a really interesting way to connect with kids. And this works well because it's during independent work. During independent work, virtual learning, the teacher is there for kind of, they give the lesson in the beginning, and then after that, they're there for kids who need assistance. Sometimes you have kids who are just, they're clearly not doing the work, they're clearly out of it. So just have the teacher really quickly, this takes 2 seconds, in the chat, hey, pull out your M.A.R.S, we're gonna do a throwback music video, pick a year from 1999 to 2005. They pick '01, you send them a throwback music video, they laugh at it. I was like, okay, how are you doing? Are you feeling good? Can we try for the rest of the day? You're still going to refer that child to the therapist, to the counselor. You're still going to refer that child. However, you don't want to waste the whole day. So that is what I am saying with the cold side of M.A.R.S. If that seems feasible, in the chat, in the I cannot pronounce it right, the WOVA, yes, in the WOVA chat, if that seems feasible, just type in yes, you feel like you would be able to do that inside of your school. So next is when I'm hot. When you're hot, that means you're mad, that means you're frustrated. When I'm hot works well with anybody. This actually works, I think it works better on adults than it does with kids. When you're mad, you're frustrated, you need somebody to cool you down. So what I do with my teachers is I teach them all about grounding. Grounding senses, 5 things they can hear, 4 things they can touch, 5 things they can see, 4 things they can touch, 3 things they can hear, 2 things they can smell, 1 thing that they can taste. When you tell children to do this, the first 2 are really easy. When you get down to 3 things you can hear, then it starts getting a little, they calm down. If they're mad, they calm down. 2 things they can smell, they really have to think about it. By the time you get to 1 thing you can taste, they're like, what is the 1 thing you can taste? It's actually your tongue. It's the only thing that you can taste without actually putting something in your mouth. They think that is a joke. They laugh about it every time, and they're good to go. Grounding colors, excuse me, work really well with the younger kids, talking like kindergarten to 8th grade. You do grounding colors. Hey, give me 5 items of your favorite color. I usually use the color red. And if they are upset, if they are frustrated, especially during virtual learning, I have a lot of kids, a lot of my ED students, a lot of my ADHD students, their tell during virtual learning when they are completely off task is they will punch the screen. They'll like punch the screen like this, and they'll way back and forth. They'll change their background every 5 seconds. They will change their screen name every 5 seconds. So I know at that point, hey, let me try to do some grounding really quickly so I can get them back on task so they don't just waste the whole class period. Something I do with my students is grounding breathing. 5 seconds in, you hold for 5 seconds, 5 seconds out. It's really super simple. Next thing and the last thing, and I want to say probably the most effective of all the grounding techniques is grounding physical. Again, works really well with my ADHD students, works really well with any kid who is just a little active and can't, sit in one place for hours at a time, which is just about all children. 5 jumping jacks, 4 arm circles, 3 toe touches, 2 emojis. Then at the end, you give yourself a hug. You can substitute this with any exercise you want. The 2 emojis, kids love this one. All children know about emojis. So I say, hey, pick out your 2 favorite emojis, and I want you to recreate that emoji in the screen, whether that is this, the hands up
high, whether that's the prayer hands. My favorite emoji is the dancing man with his arms like that. He's wearing all purple. And I always say at the end of the day, you give yourself a hug. After that, I ask them, hey, how are you feeling? You want to come back to class? Like, mentally come back to class, give this assignment a try. I'm still going to contact the therapist and the counselor and the social worker and all this and that. However, I don't want you to just sit there for an hour and not do anything. So that is how I created M.A.R.S. That is the M.A.R.S. toolkit. That is kind of what I use for my teachers when I can't readily get back to them. And then as and I started using this, back in March when we first started virtual learning, I started noticing that my teachers needed me less and less and less. And I was only getting called for like the big, a big incident had occurred, and then they would call me. So this is like, self-regulation skills just on a one-page sheet. And it looks like this at the end. And they have this M.A.R.S. Kids have it on a separate Word document. They have it on in the background. They can pull it out at any moment in time. And I've ingrained it to some of my schools, some of my teachers. I've ingrained it so much that, the kids already know that the teacher's gonna say, hey, pull out your M.A.R.S, do airplane steps, go to Kentucky, and then come back, and it's so quick. It doesn't stop instruction too much. No other kids are making fun of the one kid who's doing their affirmation because they're on mute while they're saying it, or some kid is doing grounding and physical. It's so normalized in a classroom that everybody is like, okay, this child needs, grounding senses. So we're going to give them grounding senses, and we're going to go back and we're going to do our work. So I really hope that you guys are able to bring M.A.R.S. into your classroom. Okay, so next thing, just talking about emotional intelligence. I spoke about M.A.R.S. way too long, but I love it. So we're going to talk about emotional intelligence really quickly in the path of restorative circles. Okay, the thing with restorative circles is I'm going to use the example of Jonathan again, and I'll use it, a girl, Amy. So Jonathan calls Amy the B word, right? Amy pushes Jonathan. You as a teacher say, hey, we got to have restorative circle before things get out of order, okay? Jonathan apologizes to Amy. And something that I see every single restorative circle that I've observed is that the teacher will almost force Amy to accept Jonathan's apology. The ability to create high emotional intelligence is not the ability for everybody to get along, everybody to be happy all the time. It's really to understand your emotions in relation to other people and understand that your words have effect on other people. So you can just think about two, normal people. If someone were to call you out of your name, a bad name, the B word, you wouldn't just say, oh, okay, I forgive you. Like that's not how life works. So the purpose of a restorative circle is to make sure that Jonathan and Amy are not retaliating towards each other anymore. However, they don't have to get along and be best friends because, empathy, like I say on the third bullet, is in real time. And it's not always favorable to everybody. So maybe at one point in time, Jonathan and Amy were friends and now they're not friends anymore. You have to normalize that they're not friends, and friendships come and go. I think everybody on this call can think about an elementary school friend that you're probably not friends with anymore. You could probably think about a friend that you had a couple of years ago that you're not friends with anymore. So this is something that is, again, it's in real time. And the idea behind restorative circles is to have the conflict in the classroom stop, but you don't want to force an emotion on somebody. You don't want to force an apology that shouldn't be there. That's the one big tip I want to say about restorative circles. And to just create higher emotional intelligence in your classroom while you're utilizing M.A.R.S. is to utilize just regular circles in your classroom. I have a school that is pre-K to 5, and I have a teacher that does compliment circles. Once a week, she goes in and she has the kids give compliments to each other. And I'll give you a quick story. I have one student who is on the spectrum, and she really doesn't like her voice. And then there was one time where another student gave a compliment to the student who really doesn't like her voice and said, hey, I know you don't like your voice, but I think your voice is really cool. And she came back and told me in a session, and that just made her day. And now she is active and she is more engaged all the time. That is the power of just one compliment. So I would definitely, implore you guys to use that in your schools as well. Visualization prompts. I love this. So this is just like a body scan, the thing that we did first before I started the session. You can Google a visual prompt, a 5-minute visual prompt. And as you're having your children breathe and take deep breaths and, hold on to their fingertips and wiggle their toes, things like that, you'll add in things like now you're at the beach, you'll feel the wind beneath your feet, you'll smell the cotton candy. And every single time, this does not fail, whether I am talking to a student with ADHD, I'm talking to a student with depressive disorder, or I'm just talking to a regular gen ed student, a neurotypical student, they always feel like, oh, like I feel like I'm at the beach. I feel like I'm at the park. I feel like I'm at the zoo. So visualization prompts, they're really cool. One thing I use for the older kids, talking 8th grade to 12th grade, is a quick 5-minute debate. They love this. I throw up a topic that I know is going to have polarizing opinions, like who is the better team, the Philadelphia Eagles or the Washington football team, and I have them debate it out for a quick 5 minutes. And this really just breaks up the monotony of reading, writing, math, social studies. This builds, it's almost implicit how this builds emotional intelligence into your classroom. It creates a classroom community. It is not just like a bunch of kids logging on every day or a bunch of kids showing up to school every day, doing the classroom routine and then going home. This builds the family of the classroom. And you as a teacher are almost like the parent. So these are just a few tips that you guys can use, as you guys are matriculating through virtual learning and hybrid learning as well. Okay, so I have 20 minutes left, about 20 minutes left. So that first part was all about the kids, all about these precious little bundles of joy. And one thing, I have a lot of groups with a lot of teachers, and at some point, the students, the scholars, these precious children just turn into like these kids. When I hear teachers say these kids, then I know that we are entering an area where it is a lot of energy. So I want to talk about burnout and vicarious trauma. So we all know, a lot of us know, that burnout is a state of physical and emotional exhaustion because you guys have emotionally draining jobs. Everybody knows, well, teachers know that your day does not stop at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. You have lesson plans and you're always the committee chairperson member of this and that. School leaders, you have, a lot of marketing, a lot of funding, teacher turnover rate. There's so much stress in the world of education. It is extremely hard to make it through at least one school year without feeling a little bit of burnout. I thought that it was very important to talk about burnout today because of COVID and everything that's going on. So the first thing that we really need to realize is that the physical symptoms of burnout mimic COVID very closely. So it's something that you really should be cognizant of. Cold, flu, heart, respiratory effects. I have a couple of teachers who, were having heart problems. They thought they were catching the cold, and then as soon as that happened, their anxiety started to say, is it the cold or is it COVID? And we narrowed it down that it was actually burnout. It was, way too many late nights, way too many adjustments of the lesson plan, things like that. And they were experiencing burnout. And this was at the end of last year. And that was, the last couple months of the school year. So the physical symptoms are something really pertinent to pay attention to. And next, emotional symptoms, again, the anxiety, irritability, guilt, that's all wrapped into burnout as well. Really want to focus on work-related symptoms. And I have a lot of teachers, a lot of principals, they always tell me, man, I've been through this whole day and I haven't eaten. A lot of us skip meals. I'm sure today, even just being, going through the conference, a lot of us have skipped meals. Do not skip meals. You guys we're going to talk about schedules in a second. Have a schedule for your meals. Make sure that you are eating throughout the day. I think we probably work harder now that we're at home versus if we were in school, in brick and mortar. So definitely schedule your meals. And last but not least, work without working. I'm sure a lot of us on this call have been through a time where we, close our laptop at the end of the day, and then you think back at it. You've done so much the whole day. You think back at it, you're like, did I really do any work today? Then you have to start thinking, am I near burnout? So that is burnout. That is why it is very important to just conceptualize. Next thing, a little different than burnout, but kind of on the same page, is vicarious trauma. The best way to explain vicarious trauma is through an example I have. I have a teacher, we'll call her Miss Amy. Miss Amy comes from Nebraska. Miss Amy she grew up in a very nice neighborhood, no violence, nothing. She went up to Southeast DC, and now she is teaching in Ward 8. And Amy comes into a classroom, and inside that classroom, she has had two students who I have somebody in their family have become a victim to gun violence, right? Okay. And then all of a sudden, Amy is hyper aroused. She's always looking behind her back. Amy is constantly watching the news. Amy in DC now, she lives in a very nice neighborhood. However, she has taken extra measures, extra precaution to get an additional home security system. Amy is now taking gun classes. Amy no longer goes on her bike rides anymore, her runs anymore. Amy has changed just about everything from her life. So this is vicarious trauma. Did anything actually happen to Amy? No, it happened to her students. However, she's hearing these stories day after day, week in, week out. And because of that, she has adjusted her life. So that is vicarious trauma. It's secondhand trauma from people who are experiencing the actual trauma. And it's very real. It's something that happens to a lot of teachers, and teachers don't even know it. And I believe once we, all of us go back into brick or mortar and we come in contact with a lot of students who have had instances of COVID, maybe they had a loved one who passed away because of COVID. I have a feeling that this may come up. So it's something to really pay attention to. And it's something to really just grasp hold of, that if you see yourself adjusting because of all of the pain that you're hearing day in and day out, you may have to say to yourself, is this vicarious trauma? And what to do next. Okay, so what to do next, or what to do before burnout, before vicarious trauma, is something I like to call predictability promotes peaceful productivity, the power of the 4 Ps. All right, so oftentimes I have a lot of teachers, and I'll ask them what their self-care is. And they always say, hey, I like to just sit down after a long day. I lie on the couch, I watch a little Netflix, I get on my phone, I may drink some wine, this and that. And I challenge them, and I say, well, how drained are you? Are you feeling good at the end of the day? Are you drained? And they always say, hey, I'm drained, I'm physically, mentally, emotionally just exhausted. And I don't think that is self-care. If you are just sitting on the couch, and we all have that one Netflix series that we can put on but not really pay attention to. If you are really just sitting there and you are drained, and you are just trying to recharge to have enough energy for the next day, and then you go back and do the same thing the next day, and then you have kids, and you got to get the kids' foods together and things like that, that really isn't self-care. You're just recharging, and self-care kind of prevents you from draining to begin with. So first things first, whoever you are on this call, I want you to establish your life before you have your roles. So especially in the charter school world, everybody has more than one role. If you are the principal, you are also the chair committee person. team, this league, if you are the math teacher, you also are the cheerleading coach, you also host a variety of other things, and then you guys are brothers and sisters and spouses, and you guys have a lot of roles. What I want you to do is establish your life first. Don't budge for your life, and then you work your roles around your life. By your life, I mean your routines. For me personally, I like yoga, meditation, Bible study, game night, happy hour, whether it's virtual happy hour, virtual game night, things like that. But I put this together in the beginning of the year, and this is what really runs my life. There was a moment where there was a late after school meeting. The meeting was like around 6 o'clock, but I had yoga at that time, and I had to tell my school leader, like, hey, I can't do this. Didn't say why, but I said, hey, I have a prior commitment. It had to be yoga. Could I have moved the yoga session? Sure, I probably could have moved the yoga session, but taking care of myself means that I can pour more back into the school. So I want you guys to take all of your routines. I want you to cement them in your calendar and try your best. Try your absolute best not to move around your routines for your job. I know there will be times, and I've been there. There were times where I wanted to go out on a happy hour or something like that, but I had to do something quick at work. But I don't want to make that a routine. That I don't. Adjusting my routine is not a routine, if that makes sense. I want what I put in for myself during the beginning of the year to stay there all throughout until the end of the year. So we're going to do one activity, 15 minutes. We're going to do one activity before we leave. And I need everybody, if you were looking in the comments, I need everyone to take out a sheet of paper, or you can have a note section on your phone, or you can open up a blank Word document. I want you to label it dirty water. One side dirty water, the other side clean water. I want you to draw a line down your paper, just like I have displayed on the screen. I want you to draw a little fish to the best of your ability. I want the head of the fish to be facing clean water and the tail of the fish to be facing dirty water. If you have been through this activity before, any clinicians out there, you know exactly what we are going to be doing. So you have to think about a fish and think about dirty water. Dirty water has plastic bags, bottles, cans, a bunch of stuff. When you are in dirty water, a fish has to kind of flow around everything. It's very hard. A lot of fish die in dirty water. You can't stay in dirty water too long. Next, we have clean water. Clean water is good. Finding Nemo, Dory, clean water, you're fun, you're moving, you're fancy, you're good. So on the side of dirty water, I want you guys to write down things that cause you anxiety, things that you worry about, things that make you mad, things that make you frustrated. I'm going to give you guys 1 minute to do that right now. Okay. And then next, I want you guys to write in the clean water all your self-care. Anything that brings you back to whole, as I like to call, anything that brings you back to one, anything that brings you back to peace. What do you do either within the day, before the day, or after the day to keep you going, as you matriculate throughout the school year? I'll give you guys 1 minute to do that. All right, that was like 45 seconds. I'm sorry. Okay, so just an example for me. One thing, and I'm insanely honest with myself when I do these activities. One thing that is in my dirty water, one thing that I really don't like that causes me anxiety is student tantrums. Everybody has a threshold. My threshold is exactly 2 hours. If I am with a student longer than 2 hours and they are throwing and fighting and doing tearing up the classroom, I'm going to be frustrated at the end of the day. I know that as a clinician, as myself. Things that bring me back to whole, bring me back to peace is yoga. I know after a long day that I need to do yoga. Another thing that is outside of the school, outside of the entity of my position are dishes. I do the dishes every day, especially now during quarantine. I can't stand the dishes at this point. The dishes just keep on coming. And another thing in the realm of, well, really in the realm of being a clinician and in just the realm of life, death and sickness, grief counseling is not my specialty. I know that that is an area of growth for me. And also, whenever a family member passes away, I'm just never really comfortable. Like that is something that causes me anxiety. For some teachers out there, it could be lesson planning. It could be responding back to emails. It could be committee meetings. It could be so many things. But more importantly, my clean water is writing. I love to write. I love to play basketball, soccer. I love to write poetry. I love to run. I love doing little workshops, cooking. I just started cooking. I love rom-coms. Hitch is an amazing movie. I love tea and I love playing FIFA. So this is the idea, guys. If you have more dirty water than clean water, you really need to adjust your self-care plan. You really need to try new things. You need to find different ways to put more into your self-care. Because what you want more clean water than dirty water. So if you have a lot of things that you're doing to, pump up your spirit, bring you into the new day, then you're good to go. If you're looking at it and you're like, a lot of things are really bothering me in life. However, I don't have an outlet, to bring that out of me. Then we need to talk about self-care. So really quick before I go to the questions, this is my last slide of the day. One thing about self-care, there are so many different types of self-care. Self-care is not going on a vacation. You go on a vacation, maybe once, twice, if you're lucky, 3 times a year. Self-care is something that you can do every single day, and it's something you can do every single week, something you can do every single month. So these are the different types of self-care. I want to say this is probably the most important slide of my presentation. I have some people who love walking every day, who love nutrition. I have a friend who loves stock trading. He teaches social studies, but at least once a week, he gives himself 30 minutes and he does this uninterrupted stock trading thing. I don't understand it, but that is his self-care and it works for him. I have teachers who like to pray, teachers who do meditation. I have teachers who never drew a picture up until quarantine, and now they have all these art pictures around their house. You have to get out there and try new things. You have to try what works for you. I have teachers that started. We always have something bad to say about social media. I have a teacher who started a Facebook support group for teachers under quarantine and things like that. That is her outlet, and she loves it. So something that you can check in on a couple times a week, something that you can do once a month. Definitely take a screenshot of this slide and think about how can I acquire more self-care in my life? What can I do that will better myself? And I don't want to discount watching TV or watching Netflix. If you have a really good show that you look forward to, and you're like, hey, I can't wait till I get off so I can really watch this show, and you're really like tuned in and you love it, by all means, like have that into your self-care. But if you're like struggling just to get to the couch and you lay down and you fall asleep on the couch again, and you're like, let me get up and let me, talk to these kids again. As soon as you start saying these kids, and then we know that is a sign of burnout. So these are just the types of self-care that you guys can use every single day. And yeah, I hope you guys liked this presentation. I will answer some questions. I saw a couple. If you have any more questions, put them right now in the Q&A. Again, My name is Callistus Obeng. The great thing about being named Callistus is there's only one. So if you just type in my name under LinkedIn, only I will pop up. Also, Instagram is probably a good way to follow me, get access to like some of the content. I do a lot of trainings for different schools around the city, a lot of PDs and things like that. If you want me to come to your school, I'll be more than happy to come out. Definitely take a second, answer the survey. I want to say my partner put the survey in the chat in the beginning. I hope that you guys enjoy this. I hope that you will add some part of M.A.R.S into your school system, into your team. I hope that you guys will take a good look at burnout and vicarious trauma, and see the signs before it's too late, and acquire self-care. I always advocate for therapy. Therapists need therapy more than anybody else. So I know that all the teachers, all the principals, all the directors and coordinators out there need therapy as well. And thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so I want to say like 4 minutes.
Yeah,
All right.
well, it's okay if we want to stay on a couple more seconds. I do want to say that folks have the ability to unmute themselves if you just want to ask a question out loud. Feel free to do that as well.
Yeah, if anybody wants to ask a question out loud, yeah, just unmute.
You should have the ability. Yeah, you have the ability to raise your hand if you're having trouble, and I can prompt you to unmute. But you do have the option to do that as well. Feel free to go to the question in there as well.
Okay, so first question, can you talk a little bit more about how you determine what works for different age groups of students, hot and cold? Let me go really quickly. Well, let me see if I can do this. I can go back to that slide. A lot of it it's almost guess and check, and it's almost the type of child, because I know my children really well. And most teachers, by the second, third month of school, they'll know what works. When it comes to age bands, I want to say for something like M.A.R.S and Affirmation, that works on first grade and first grade to 12th grade, that's good to go. Airplane steps, that again, I try to do that with I want to say a ninth grader, and they were like, what are you doing right now? However, I tried to do throwback music video with a first grader, and they danced to it. It was great. However, they didn't like get the they didn't get the concept of it. So I would say a lot of it is guess and check. A lot of it is really based on how well the teacher knows the student. And as you begin to develop your toolkit, you'll start to understand, okay, I can do this with these children, I can do this with that children. But just to give a straight up answer, I would say M.A.R.S and Affirmation, you can use that. Everybody K to 12 can use that. Airplane steps, I would give that from K to third grade. Picture, K to third grade. Throwback music video, I would use that from probably fifth grade up. The good thing, and that's with cold. The good thing with hot you can use on anybody, any grade band, anytime. So you can use that from pre-K 3 all the way up to, well, kindergarten, all the way up to 12th grade. If you have pre-K students who are really off task, you can do grounding senses. I've done that before, but you really need to guide them along. So I would make that like a whole group. So if you see that maybe 2 or 3 kids are off, I would have the whole group say, hey guys, what are 5 things you can see in your house right now? What are 4 things you can touch? What are 3 things you can hear? What are 2 things you can smell? And then 1 thing you can taste. I'd almost make it for pre-K 3 a mindfulness break, like a whole group mindfulness break, so they can kind of catch on to what you were doing. Okay, I have another question. What strategies do you have to get teachers to move away from the language of these kids? Man, that is a whole session in itself. The thing is, I like to normalize a lot. When teachers are feeling upset and frustrated, I don't say, hey, you signed up for this, you are teaching the future leaders of the world, things like that. Some days you're gonna have a bad day, and it's crazy because this presentation was way too long, so I took out one slide about embracing the bad day. But I think it's important to really kind of be there for teachers and, you know, have them understand, like, I get what you're going through. I definitely understand. Sometimes, you know, students have the ability to just, it's almost like too, what's the word I'm looking for? Too much of a task at times. And you're like, I can't do this, you know? I have affirmations for a lot of my teachers, and that helps them. And I make them pull out the affirmation in the dead of March when we have no breaks, no days off. And, you know, it is really, really wearing down on them. And that tends to help them. I have, you know, things like happy hour for teachers, like, you know, virtual happy hour, virtual game night. Really, we have a positivity committee at our school, and we put on events to help the teachers kind of just push through the next day. I try to be really clear in communication. Teachers love clear communication. Try to be really clear in communication for my teachers. I check in with them weekly, every week, you know, and for them, their temperature check is more than, you know, are you feeling good? Are you feeling bad? Like, no, I want to know, like, where's your anxiety coming from? Is it the lesson plan? Is it the classroom management? Is it the homework? Is it, I know a lot of us have issues with report cards and progress reports and putting comments on report cards. I want to know where it is and how can we help. I really, the best way I can answer this is to say, I want to give teachers a voice as much as possible. The more they hear their voices heard, the more the administration can help them and they can pour back into the kids. But again, I can do all of that. We can shower with love and support. And, you know, this job is very, very, especially in DC, it's extremely hard. So you are going to have those moments where, I mean, an administrator is on the call. You may have the moments where you're like, these teachers, you know, I don't know what to do anymore. And I know that you guys have all been there. So I would definitely say, hey, use your self-care, breathe it out, and definitely, you know, 100% understand that it's universal. Everybody has a bad day. Everybody has a bad couple of days. We just got to make sure we don't get to that burnout level. So you got to establish your routine, establish your self-care, and don't budge for anybody. Okay, I think that is the last question. I'm gonna check really quickly. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's
so. Thank you guys. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying that was the last one.
Oh, yes. So thank you guys for participating. I hope you guys have a great rest of the conference. And yes, my name is Callistus, and I hope to see you guys one day soon. All right. Oh, okay. Yes, I see the I didn't see the chat. Okay. All right. Thank you. So do I exit out? Cool.
I'm going to end it now.
Oh, ending now. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye. Thank you all.